It was a day like any other. Birds sang, sun shone, then Peter Williamson vanished. No note, no goodbye, just an empty space where he used to be. How does a person just disappear? It's a question that haunts us, a chilling reminder that the world holds mysteries we may never solve. This is the story of Peter Williamson, a man swallowed by the unknown. Peter Williamson was a creature of habit. Every morning, he would wake up at precisely 6:30 a.m., the soft chime of his alarm clock breaking the silence of his modest apartment. He would then make himself a cup of black coffee, no sugar, and sit by the window, watching the world slowly come to life. This was his moment of peace before the day began. He worked as a librarian, surrounded by the comfort of books. The library was his sanctuary, a place where he felt truly at home. He knew every nook and cranny of the building, every book and its place on the shelves. His colleagues respected him for his dedication, though they found him somewhat enigmatic. Quiet and unassuming, Peter kept to himself. He was the kind of person who could blend into the background, unnoticed by most. His presence was like a whisper, gentle and unobtrusive. He preferred it that way, finding comfort in his own company and the silent companionship of books. He lived alone in a small apartment, his days a predictable rhythm of work, reading and short walks in the park. The park was his escape, a place where he could breathe in the fresh air and let his mind wander. He would often sit on a bench lost in thought, watching the world go by. He wasn't social, didn't have many friends. His interactions were limited to brief exchanges with colleagues and the occasional nod to a neighbor. He was a man of few words, preferring to listen rather than speak. His solitude was a choice, a way to protect himself from the chaos of the outside world. Some might call him lonely, but Peter found solace in his routine. His books were his friends, his escape from reality. Each page he turned was a new adventure, a new world to explore. He found joy in the simple act of reading, losing himself in the stories and characters that filled his mind. He wasn't a man who sought adventure. The idea of stepping out of his comfort zone was foreign to him. He was content with his life, finding happiness in the ordinary. His days were a series of familiar routines, each one bringing a sense of stability and peace. He was content in the ordinary. The predictability of his life was a source of comfort, a way to keep the uncertainties of the world at bay. He found beauty in the mundane, in the quiet moments that others might overlook. His life was simple, but it was his own, which is why his disappearance is so baffling. One day Peter simply vanished, leaving behind his neatly arranged apartment and the life he had built. There were no signs of struggle, no clues to suggest where he might have gone. It was as if he had been swallowed by the very silence he cherished. There was nothing remarkable about Peter's life, nothing to suggest he would ever become the center of a mystery. Yet, his absence left a void, a question that lingered in the minds of those who knew him. What had happened to Peter Williamson, the man who found contentment in the ordinary? The morning of Peter's disappearance began like any other. He woke up, made his coffee, read the newspaper. He left for work at the usual time, stopping at the corner bakery for a croissant. Security footage shows him entering the library, a brown satchel slung over his shoulder. He clocked in at 8 o'clock sharp. But Peter never clocked out. He wasn't at his desk when his co-worker arrived after lunch. His satchel, his coat, his lunchbox, all gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The police were called, a missing person report was filed. Detectives searched Peter's apartment, his workplace, the surrounding streets. They interviewed colleagues, neighbors, the cashier at the bakery, but there was nothing. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, no witnesses. Days turned into weeks, weeks bled into months. The trail ran cold. Peter Williamson had vanished, leaving behind a void of unanswered questions. The mystery deepened, casting a long shadow over the ordinary. Section 5: Dead Ends and False Leads. The investigation hit a wall. Days turned into weeks, and the sense of urgency grew more palpable with each passing moment. The detectives were relentless, working around the clock, but every promising lead seemed to dissolve into thin air. Every lead led to a dead end. The streets that once seemed full of clues now felt like a labyrinth with no exit. The detectives interviewed countless people, hoping for a breakthrough, but the answers they received were always the same, vague and unhelpful. A few potential witnesses came forward, claiming to have seen Peter on the day he disappeared. Their accounts were inconsistent, each one adding more confusion to the already tangled web of information. Some described him as calm and composed, while others said he appeared agitated and in a hurry. A jogger swore she saw him on his usual park bench, a book in his hand. She was certain it was him, but when asked about the book's title or his attire, her memory became hazy. The park, once a place of solace for Peter, now seemed like a haunting reminder of his absence. A shopkeeper thought he saw Peter boarding a bus, his face pale and drawn. He remembered the moment vividly, but when pressed for details, his story began to falter. Was it really Peter? Or just someone who resembled him? The uncertainty gnawed at the investigators. But these sightings were fleeting, unreliable. The images captured were blurry, the descriptions vague. Each new piece of information seemed to contradict the last, making it nearly impossible to form a coherent picture of Peter's last known movements. None of them could be corroborated. The frustration among the team was palpable. They were chasing shadows, and the more they tried to grasp at them, the more elusive they became. The sense of failure weighed heavily on their shoulders. The police chased every thread, every whisper, every hunch. They revisited old leads, hoping for a missed clue, and followed new ones, no matter how improbable. The case consumed their lives, but despite their best efforts, they were no closer to finding Peter. But Peter Williamson remained elusive, his disappearance a puzzle with no solution in sight. The streets, the parks, the bus stops, all held memories of him, yet none offered answers. The mystery deepened, leaving everyone to wonder, where could Peter be, and why did he vanish without a trace? As time passed, the case grew cold. Peter's name faded from the headlines, but the whispers remained. Theories swirled like dust devils. Some whispered of foul play, of a dark secret, a hidden life. Others spoke of a man overwhelmed, seeking escape from the mundane. There were rumors of a lover, a secret gambling debt, a hidden past. But these were just that, rumors. Unsubstantiated claims fueled by speculation and the human need to make sense of the senseless. The silence was the hardest part, the not knowing. Peter's colleagues at the library carried on, but a shadow hung over the place. His neighbors, once indifferent, now locked their doors a little tighter at night. The world moved on, but the mystery of Peter Williamson remained, a stubborn stain on the fabric of their lives. And what about Peter? Did he choose to disappear? Was he taken against his will? Or was it something else entirely, something we can't even begin to imagine? Years have passed since that day, the day that changed everything for the small town of Millfield. It was a day like any other, but it left an indelible mark on the community. The disappearance of Peter Williamson has become a haunting legend, whispered about in hushed tones. The case of Peter Williamson remains unsolved. Despite the tireless efforts of the local police and private investigators, no clues have surfaced. The files grow thicker, but the answers remain elusive. Each document tells a story of a lead that went nowhere, a witness who saw nothing, a theory that fell apart. His apartment sits empty, a time capsule frozen on the day he vanished. Dust has settled over his belongings, creating a thin veil over the life he left behind. The rooms are silent, echoing with the absence of their owner. It's as if time itself has stopped within those walls. His books remain untouched on the shelves, their spines uncracked, their pages unturned. They stand as silent witnesses to a life interrupted. Each book holds a piece of Peter's world, a world that has been left in limbo, his life on hold, waiting for his return. Family photos gather dust, their smiles frozen in time. The chair he used to sit in remains empty, a stark reminder of his absence. Every corner of his home speaks of a life paused, a story unfinished. But the hope of finding him dwindles with each passing season. The seasons change, the years roll by, but the mystery remains. Each sunset brings a new day, but also a reminder of the days that have been lost. The calendar pages turn, marking the passage of time, but not the progress of the investigation. The mystery of Peter Williamson is a stark reminder of the fragility of life, of how quickly and inexplicably someone can disappear. It's a story that has left a deep scar on the community, a wound that refuses to heal. The silhouette of Peter's presence lingers, a ghostly figure in the collective memory of Millfield, of how easily someone can slip through the cracks, unnoticed and unmissed until it's too late. The cracks in the system, the gaps in the investigation, all contributing to the enigma that surrounds his disappearance. It's a chilling thought that someone can vanish so completely, leaving behind nothing but questions. Questions that haunt those who knew him. Questions that plague the minds of the investigators. Each unanswered question is a reminder of the mystery that remains. The foggy window, the empty phone booth, the faded letter, all symbols of the uncertainty that shrouds Peter's fate. It's a story that stays with you long after you've heard it, a tale that lingers in the back of your mind. The image of Peter, the unanswered questions, the unresolved case, they all form a narrative that is hard to forget. It's a story that makes you think, makes you wonder, makes you question the world around you. A chilling echo in the quiet corners of your mind. The empty alley, the echoing footsteps, the wind blowing through deserted places, all serve as reminders of the mystery that endures. It's a story that leaves a lasting impression, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of unanswered questions. What happened to Peter Williamson? Was it a simple case of a man choosing to disappear to start anew, or was there something darker at play? We may never know, but the questions linger, and in the absence of answers, we are left to grapple with the unknown, to confront the unsettling possibility that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved. What do you believe?